This is Tony English again. I'm continuing my series of funny real estate stories over the last 25 years. One of them occurred here in Rolling Hills where I live. There was back probably more than 15 years ago, there was an association squabble that I wasn't even part of. What happened was they had asked me to come in and give them advice on how we can get the property values up, and I was very honored and touched that they asked me to do that. So I went in with a whole list of things with my presentation on, mailboxes and streets and gate improvements and things like that. And, I was not offended that they didn't follow through with anything. I just was very happy that they asked me to do it. Well, what happened was, I'll just run it through my experience. One day I come home after years of pumping up my reputation in the neighborhood. I always stayed out of any politics because, you end up making enemies. People would call me up, what do you think about the speed bumps? I say, what do you think? Whatever they said, I agreed with, whatever. I wasn't really that concerned about any of the politics going on because I didn't want to ruin, relationships with people who disagreed with the issue. But what happened was I opened my mailbox and there was a letter that had been stuffed in there out of an envelope that said on the top, Tony English is an unscrupulous realtor, and they had put it in all the boxes of Rolling Hills. So, that was really shocking to me because it was like all my work of trying to prove who I am and my integrity and my hard work and getting the prices up was being disqualified. So I started calling everybody I knew and trying to find out what was going on, and it turned out the association president lived right next door to me, Kathy Donner, and I was friends with her. We were friendly. But what happened was there was an ex-board member named Carl who had some arguments with the board, and he decided to do a recall. But he did it anonymously without putting his name on it. But when you do a recall, you have to put the names of the new members that you want on there, and he put my name on there as a member, which I did not want to be a member. He never asked me. It was just he put me on there. So the current board thought that I was mad that they didn't take my advice, and so they assumed that I was the one doing the recall, which was completely untrue. I had no idea the recall was happening. So normally people the HOA meetings, nobody goes to them. There's a few, 3-4 people there. But this time, when they had the recall meeting, everybody had to vote, and there was maybe almost 200 people there, and there's only 300 houses in the neighborhood, so it was incredible. And I was sitting there in the front row, and Kathy got up and made her argument of why we should not do the recall, and then she said, whoever's doing the recall, come up and talk. No one got up, and I looked at Carl because I found out he was the one who did it, and he just sat there, cowardly, not. He was a good guy, but he just too smart for his own britches, but he didn't want to get up and talk. So I said, what, I'm going to go tell everybody I had nothing to do with this. So I get up there in front of everybody and I said, I just want everybody to know that I'm neutral and I had nothing to do with this. And all of a sudden there was people going, yeah, right, boo. They didn't believe me. So it was quite the experience. So anyway, after the meeting, it turned out that the recall was not won. One of the board members came over to me. I'll call his name Charles. And he started kind of chastising me and accusing me again of doing the recall. I told him I had nothing to do with it, and he didn't believe me. So I said, all right, whatever, we'll part ways. But then, I have kind of a rumor mill here in the neighborhood, and I found out he was going to sell his house a couple months later. So I wrote a letter to him saying, hey, I know we had kind of a rough past, but why hire a second-rate realtor when you can get the best? So please call me to sell your house. So he wouldn't answer. He didn't answer the door, so I left a letter on his front door. Well, month or two later, the people right next door wanted to sell their house, and back then I used to use those wood post signs that I had installed into the lawn that made it kind of more bold. And so I called up my company and I had them put up the sign. Well, I was out in a function. It was probably about 9 o'clock at night, and I got a call from Charles, and he said and I didn't hear the messages till the next morning. I had like 5-6 messages. So in the morning I get up and I hear, Tony, get this effing sign out of my yard right away. I was like, what? I didn't. And then next time, get this sign out of my house right away. And then if you don't come and get this sign, I'm going to chop it up. And so I went, wow, what's going on? So I drove up to his house, and in front of his house was a pile of wood where he had chainsawed it up into a pile. And so apparently what had happened was my company who was listing that, putting a sign next door, accidentally put it on his house. And what was ironic was he was planning on selling in like the next week or two, and he thought I was claiming territory. So I started laughing. I went, "Oh my God, I got to explain this to him." So I knocked on the door, like 9:30 in the 10 in the morning, and he opens the door, and I kind of giggled, my nervous giggle, and and he said, "Don't laugh at me," and he shut the door and locked it. And I kept knocking, he wouldn't answer. So I cleaned up the sign mess, ordered a new sign, had it put next door, and never talked. He would never talk to me again about anything. I think he finally figured out that it was just a mistake, and I think he was embarrassed and didn't want to do it. But in this business, you learn everything the hard way, and so I never used those wood signs again after that. I want to put the sign in myself, so I don't put it in the wrong house. You can't trust anybody else to do it right. Just another funny story. Talk to you